All right, everyone, welcome back. Josh Beatar and Alex Goldman here for From the Stands. And today we are kindly joined by the newly crowned UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion of the world, the pride and joy of Colorado Springs, Colorado, Raquel Pennington. Raquel, it is a pleasure to catch up once again. Last time we spoke was about 2 years ago, and a lot's changed for you in that time. I guess I know you're dealing with your little one at the moment, so how have things been for you?
They've been good, I mean, obviously, like you said, a lot's changed. Achieving the ultimate goal, becoming a mama. I think that's the biggest change, the best change. As an athlete and as a person for my personal goals and becoming a world champion. I mean, that's everything. Seeing 14 years of hard work and dedication finally pay off. But, having a lay around and a different purpose in life. Sometimes as athletes, we kind of forget, we get caught up and it's like, the sport, I always say, has the highest of highs and lowest of lows. Because sometimes it's like we feel like fighting can be our identity. And I say we because I've had this conversation with multiple athletes. Instead of being like, oh, okay, well, fighting's just a part of who we are, but it doesn't like define who we are as people. And having a layer around now, like I'm seeing the different, meanings of life and the different
Yeah.
purpose and stuff. So it's a lot more exciting.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to firstly touch on that and sort of reflect on that big milestone you got at UFC 297. Obviously, it was an incredibly special night for you, and one I like to, Dustin Poirier saying "paid in full," and I feel like that was your paid in full moment. Your second attempt at the title, and then you're doing it in such a dominant fashion too against Bueno Silva. I mean, it didn't look like you took a lot of damage from our
Yeah.
perspective. You were the one inflicting it. I guess now that we reflect on that night, how does that feel now, knowing that you were able to accomplish that? And I saw your post just before, about half an hour ago, saying that it was a symbol of relentless dedication and passion for the sport. So I guess when you reflect on that night, what does that mean to you?
It's just everything to me. Being able to, that night I had to overcome another mountain. I was sick going into that fight. I had to dig deep in a place that I haven't had to dig in a very long time. So, just accomplishing the ultimate goal, having my loved ones there, knowing all the love and support that stands behind me, becoming a mom, that being the first camp, winning the world title. Speaking of becoming a mom, here she is. um, Winning the world title, having her there, like there was just so much more that went into it for me. I don't know. It's still like super surreal. I don't know. My family's always called me champ, and now it's like, man, like I
Mm,
really am the champ. And it's not just the champ of the United States or some small promotion. Like it's the best of the best.
yeah.
I now have the largest target on my back. It's the champion of the world. There's so much that goes into it, and it's extremely exciting.
Mm.
Mm. And you
Maybe
just
one
spoke
day I'll find the words, but I don't have them.
for sure. You just spoke about it, that there's a lot that goes into coming champion. And, one thing we've asked fighters that have either lost big fights or lost the belt is that people have switched up on them after that. And my question for you is, after you won the belt, did you find some people switched up on you in terms of coming out of the woodwork, people trying to get associated with you again because of now your new status as champion? Did you experience any of that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll tell you what, I told Tisha, I was sitting there, I got my phone back and I was like, I didn't even know this many people had my phone number.
Yeah.
The way my social media went, I haven't spoke to people in years upon years. And there are some relationships that like, you don't speak, but you pick up where you left off. And like, those
Yeah.
are the relationships that matter. But like, there are some relationships that like come and go in life and that's for a reason. And some
Yeah.
of those relationships that have come and gone in life that came out of the woodwork. So it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
I apparently have a huge, I come from a huge family, but I apparently like have half of this world as family members, cousins. I've had numerous boyfriends and girlfriends, best friends. I can't even tell you what. It's been pretty interesting to say the least.
What's up, guys? It's Josh here From the Stands. And look, I know you're in the middle of a good little interview that we're currently doing, but I want to take a second of your time just to give a quick little shout out to today's sponsor, TrainAid. Obviously, they're big supporters of us, like we are of them. And today they're sponsoring this video. And look, I want to let you guys know about a little product they do, their premium product, TrainAid Hydration. It's the best hydration formula on the market, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. And look, if you don't believe me, ask guys like Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski, Leon Edwards. You ever heard of these guys? I mean, they're the top athletes in the world. and they're all taking Trainade Hydration. It really is the #1 formula in the world for hydration, and in the summer months here in Australia, I mean, it's something that I think everyone should be taking. And Trainade have been very nice to give us a discount code, a very healthy discount code as well. I mean, it's a nice little discount code. If you use the code FTS15 at the checkout, they will give you 15% off. We'll leave a link to their website in this description of this video, and yeah, check them out, guys. Please support them because they are supporting us. Cheers.
That's funny. Well, Raquel, something I wanted to get your thoughts on. Obviously, the next pay-per-view, UFC 300, there's a big addition to your weight class at 135 with Kayla Harrison making the transition from the PFL to the UFC. And I guess I wanted to get your sort of thoughts on that fight, and also how tough it could be for her to continue to make that weight. Obviously, she's a strong girl, a lot of muscle mass, and I guess from the onset when that fight was announced, it was, can she make 135? And now if she makes 135, can she continue to make 135? And obviously she's an athlete, Olympian, and people can do what they set their minds to. I believe in that. But I guess, what are your thoughts on her overall debut and coming over to the UFC?
I think it's awesome. I honestly thought she would have signed a lot sooner. So now, I mean, big announcement, obviously a huge card coming up. So a lot of good things. It brings a lot more attraction to the bantamweight division as well. She has a huge name behind her. I think for me, I think she can make 135. She is a pretty dense girl and whatnot, but I think she can make 135. She's done interviews. She spoke about how she has made 135 pounds or like a trial cut and stuff. But I think the biggest question for me is there's a difference between making the weight and how you're going to perform at the weight. So I think that would pop up as the question for me is, how are you going to perform? I think it's kind of one of those things to where the matchup with her and Holly Holm, I feel like she truly had a challenge in the PFL when, what was her name? Pacheco, right?
There's a Pacheco, yeah.
Yeah, when she challenged her and she brought out her striking, it wasn't a great night for Kayla. So I feel like if Holly brings the fighter that she came into the UFC as, and she lets go of her striking and, does exactly what she did to Ronda to where she became world champion, it's going to be a bad night for Kayla. But if Holly continues fighting the way that she's fought her last few fights, Kayla's going to have a great night.
For sure. Raquel, what I wanted to know is, do you feel that becoming a champion at this stage in your career, where you have so much more experience, you have grown so much as a fighter from your early fights, do you think that that's going to allow you to be, a much more dominant champion? As something we've seen with, some of the younger champions is they kind of get rushed to the belt. It's a little bit early, and then, they lose it after a defense or two. So do you think, getting the belt at this stage in your career is just going to allow you to be a more dominant champion?
I do. I always sit here and say, the sport is 90% mental, 10% physical. Obviously, it's an extremely physical sport. But I feel at this point, I'm 35. I'm on a 6-fight win streak for a reason. I went back to having fun. I feel like I've just truly matured as an athlete, as a purpose. It's just, my mindset is completely different. And I feel like that's what set things on a different track for me again. And having fun is the biggest key. So, I feel like that definitely will play for the biggest part in all of this. I don't know. And then I think the biggest thing for me too is my last fight, like I said, having Alea around, there's just a different purpose. There's a different motivation. I cannot explain it. You hear all these moms talk about, oh, just wait, mom strength, mom motivation, whatever. My parents always said, they're like, when you have a kid of your own, you'll understand. And I truly am understanding that. The fight week was it was completely different. Like going into this fight was completely different. And for me, like just my mindset, it's completely different. Like I'm her greatest teacher. I have to teach her how to be brave, how to be strong, how to be courageous, to go out and conquer goals. And like, I don't know, the emotions that I once felt as a fighter, they're burning 10 times stronger. But then like any emotions of like fear or just negative emotions that can come in, because this sport can be an emotional roller coaster. Those don't exist for me anymore. And so, we're human beings. We're not invincible. But like in my mind, like I do feel very unstoppable. And I feel like that's just, and on top of that, I've been doing this for so long that it's like, okay, if I'm going to sit here and beat myself up for so long and go through all of this and whatnot, like I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to I have a legacy to pass on to my daughter and the other kids that we want and stuff. And So there's so much more that goes into it now that, yeah, it plays a different part.
Absolutely. And I kind of wanted to circle back to what you said there. And I remember when you sort of started going on this win streak, and I think you were maybe 2 or 3 fights into that win streak when we last spoke, and it was just before Nunes rematched Pena. And I guess I wanted to know, what was the biggest thing that sort of made that change to allow you on this 6 fight win streak? Was it something mental? Was it physical? Was it one more than the other? What would you sort of sit there and say, okay, this one key point is what I can attribute to this success?
Most of it was mental, but a lot of it, there was the physical too. I had a lot of struggles after I fought Misha Tate, and I've sat there and I've spoke about that journey and just kind of, Alea, will you stop? Sorry, guys.
Yeah, right. Take your time.
Spoke about that journey and, just the struggles going into that, the medical issues that I was having, not feeling like myself, just one obstacle after another, after another, after another. And now it's like, I feel like things have truly aligned for me. And I just feel like my mindset is absolutely just different. I don't know. I switched up my camps. I really started focusing on sports psychology. I got into a lot of meditation. I got back to journaling, and having fun in that aspect. There's just different things that really they made a difference.
Yeah.
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 Raquel, what I wanted to know is, after you won the belt, was there any other, any sense of what's next? Where do I go from here? What do I do now? Because, as you would know, obviously, this sport is so hard, and, that belt, championship of the world, that is the ultimate mountaintop. And I can imagine that maybe after you reach that mountaintop, it might be a bit hard to either, motivate yourself for what's next or to think about where you're going to go moving forward. Did you experience any of that?
No, for me, I think the only thing I experienced, it took a second, if I'm being honest, for the world title to actually sink in. Just not feeling well. I wasn't feeling well up until I'd probably say the last week of February. Alea ended up getting super sick. She ended up in the hospital. Tisha ended up super sick. Like, we just had stuff going on. So as a person, like, I just felt like beat down and like, I don't know. It was everything else, like, did not really matter. This little girl is distracting me on a different level right now. So sorry.
Yeah, right.
Everything else, like, I don't know, it didn't matter. But the goalpost is constantly moving. So the ultimate goal was to win the world title, and I feel like to be a true champion, you have to, and to prove you're a champion, you defend your title and you win again. So now that's the next goal, for me. But I'm an ambitious person, and so things are always changing. Like I said, I mean, that goalpost is constantly moving.
Absolutely. Raquel, Julianna Pena, that fight looks like a one that I think a lot of fans are interested. I'm definitely interested in seeing that fight. In your mind, I know the fight that you won the title was only 2 months ago at this point. But in your mind, is there a time frame or a month or anything like that where you're looking at that you've got earmarked to have that fight?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking for a return probably like October, November timeframe. I actually had to get stem cell in my shoulder during my last camp, so midway through, just to kind of get through the rest of that camp. And I didn't get the chance to properly rehabilitate. So I'm working on that. And then with Tisha, she's making her comeback after finally having the baby and being out for 2 years. She's fighting Mother's Day weekend, May 11th. So, and then, the baby turns 1 in June. And so we just have some special moments coming up that, I want Tisha to shine. And then I want to spend some family time, be able to enjoy a little bit of time off, rehabilitate, just get back out there. So I'm looking for October, November timeframe. We'll see how that truly plays out. And then, in my mind, and in my coaches, Julianna'S the one that's next.
How did you find the stem cells, by the way? I've heard a lot about them. They're not very prevalent over here in Australia, and I guess I've heard a lot about them through Rogan. I've heard him talk a lot about them. Did they help a lot?
They do. So, after the Misha Tate fight, 2 weeks before that fight, I completely tore my shoulder. I tore my bicep. And so then after the fight, I went in total reconstructive shoulder surgery, a bicep repair, I had wrist surgery, and it was brutal. It was the most brutal recovery. It took so long for my shoulder to feel anywhere near normal. And still, I mean, that was in 2016, and here we are in 2024, and I still feel things from that surgery. So, I fought Aldana in 2019, and when I fought her in 2019, 2 days before the fight, we were down there getting a sweat in for weight cut. I actually tore my hip. So, when I did that, I went to the doctor, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna need surgery," and I was like, "No, I'm not doing surgery again." So that's when I started looking into stem cell. I spoke with UFC. They're the ones that got me hooked up with everything. And now it's something that I absolutely live by. I've had stem cell in a few places, no issues. I rehabilitate the way that I need to with things, and I feel perfectly fine. So I would highly recommend, if people can afford stem cell, if they have access to stem cell, it would be something before you think about actually going under the knife. A lot of people, there's a lot of arguments that come into stuff with that. People believe in PRP. People, they really believe it. And there are some situations where like you just have to get surgery, but I would prefer looking into other options, and I would recommend that to anybody.
Yeah, for sure. Raquel, my last question for you is, we hear a lot, said that when someone becomes a champion, they become 30% better. And, whether it's the confidence from having the belt, the self-belief that you are the champion. But I'm curious, is that something you felt in training at all? Have you felt that you've gotten markedly better in the room?
I actually felt like I've become better before becoming the world champion. And if I'm being honest, like I was truly disappointed with the fight becoming world champion, just not feeling well, having to overcome another obstacle, climb that mountain again. There was a couple points in that fight where I seen it in her eyes and it felt like, oh, just finish her. But like, honestly, I told why they were announcing us, I was having the conversation with my coaches about how this fight was going to hurt because I was completely flat. Like I've never experienced a fight like that. And so in the middle of the fight, I remember in the second round specifically, I bombed her with a right hand and she kind of turned, and it was like in that moment. But like I was telling my body to do everything, and like I just could not get myself to go. So my coaches were like, "Hey, like just drag this in deep waters. We do not care. Get this shit done." Yeah. And so that's what we did. And so, I feel like I progressed before that, and I was so excited to go out there and showcase everything. And then, life works out the way it does. Something's always happening. And so that's what makes it exciting. It's a cool journey. It's a cool story, could look back and be like, man. So I'm excited for the next fight, to say the least.
Yeah,
for sure. And, I think we're all looking forward to that, Raquel. I'll speak for Josh and myself. We can't wait to see you back in there defending the belt. And I think your little lady is giving us the signal that we need to wrap up for today. And the last thing we would ever want to do is annoy the boss. So Raquel,
you might start talking to you guys in a second.
Exactly. But Raquel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. And thank you as well to your little girl for joining as well. First for us here From the Stands, but always here looking to break first. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'd love to talk to you again after you defend that belt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on again. It was great talking to you guys, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Raquel.
Thank you, Raquel.
You guys take care.